Welcome to Talk Tickers. We cut through the noise of earnings calls to bring you what really matters.
And today, we're digging into Inovio Pharmaceuticals, ticker INOV. Their first quarter 2025 results are out.
Yeah, we'll unpack their performance, look at the pipeline, especially INO-3107, and see what the future might hold based on their call.
Sounds good.
So let's start with the snapshot. What are the headline numbers?
Okay, well, the big story is cost control. Operating expenses were down pretty significantly, 20% year over year.
20%, wow.
Yeah, from $31.5 million down to $25.1 million in Q1 25.
And that must have helped the bottom line.
It did. Net loss also dropped quite a bit, went from $30.5 million or 1.31 cents per share last year to $19.7 million or 4.51 cents per share this quarter. So a definite improvement there.
Right. And cash. That's always critical for biotech.
Always. They ended the quarter with $68.4 million in cash equivalents and short-term investments.
Which is down from year end.
Correct. Down from $94.1 million at the end of 2024. But importantly, they estimate this cash runway lasts into the first quarter of 2026.
Okay, so they have some breathing room, operational speaking.
Exactly. About a year's worth, based on current projections, not counting any future fundraising, of course.
Right, standard caveat. So that financial discipline seems geared towards advancing their lead candidate, INO-3107.
Absolutely. That's for RRP, Recurrent Respiratory Papillomatosis.
And the big focus there is the BLA submission, the biologics license application to the FDA. Where does that stand?
They're saying it's still on track. They plan to start the rolling submission mid-year, so like very soon.
Rolling submission meaning they submit parts as they're ready?
Yep. And the goal is to have the full submission during the second half of 2025.
Okay. And then potential FDA acceptance by year end.
That's the hope. And the really interesting part is if they get priority review.
Which would speed things up considerably.
Right. A PDUFA date, the decision date, could potentially land in mid-2026 if that happens.
That's a key potential catalyst then. Any hurdles mentioned on the call?
Well, they did mention a previous manufacturing issue with a part of the delivery device, the Cellitra device's single-use array, but they said that's now resolved. And the necessary device design verification testing, the DV testing, has started.
Which is needed for the BLA.
Needed for the BLA and also for an IND update. And they added that all the non-device parts of the BLA clinical, non-clinical CMC, those are drafted.
So sounds like the pieces are coming together for that submission. They're also planning a confirmatory trial.
Yes, that's still on track too. Targeting over 20 sites. Major U.S. medical centers, just reinforcing the data package.
Makes sense. Let's talk about that data then. What are the highlights supporting this push?
Well, they had the publication in Nature Communications back in February. That covered the clinical and immunology data from the completed phase 3 trial.
Right, I remember that.
And they've submitted longer-term clinical effect data to another journal. Plus, they'll be presenting year 2 and year 3 durability data soon at the COSM meeting.
CSM, the otolaryngology meeting. That durability data is crucial for RRP, isn't it?
Absolutely, because the standard of care often involves repeated surgeries. So the initial phase 3 trial, that looked at patients needing at least 2 surgeries a year.
Okay.
Showed a statistically significant drop in surgeries in the first 12 months after treatment.
But the longer-term data sounds even more compelling.
It does. They mentioned a retrospective trial, RRP-002, with almost 3 years median follow-up. It suggested the benefit actually improved beyond year 1. In the first year, 72% of patients had a 50% to 100% reduction in surgeries.
Pretty good.
But by year 2, that number climbed to 86%. And get this, half of those patients needed no surgeries in the second year.
Wow. 0 surgeries for half the patients in year 2?
Yeah.
That's potentially practice-changing if it holds up.
That's clearly the hope, and why they're engaging with the RRP community and doctors, positioning 3107 as, a potential non-surgical go-to option.
So what's the market look like for this? RRP is rare, right?
It is. Officially designated rare. The estimate is around 14,000 people actively affected in the U.S.
But the key is the lack of approved therapies besides surgery.
Exactly. Huge unmet need. And Inovio's market research, talking to doctors, patients, payers, suggests strong belief that 3107 could be the preferred product if approved.
What resonated most with the specialists, the laryngologists?
Apparently that data point, the 50% to 100% surgery reduction in, 8 out of 10 patients by year 2,
right,
that really caught their attention.
Understandable. And safety tolerability.
Reported as well tolerated. Most common things were temporary injection site pain, some fatigue. Importantly, no one stopped treatment due to side effects in the trials.
And the administration seems convenient.
Yeah, it's designed for a doctor's office visit, doesn't require scoping or surgeries around the treatment itself, which is a big plus for patients.
Makes sense. And they're already thinking commercial launch.
Definitely. Commercial readiness planning is underway, refining the go-to-market model, planning the team build-out. They're looking ahead.
Okay, so 3107 is the main story, but not the only one. They talked about their DMAb platform too. DNA-encoded monoclonal antibodies.
Right. Some promising interim data from a phase I trial looking at DMAbs for COVID-19.
What was promising about it?
They showed durable antibody production in people for over 72 weeks. That's a long time.
72 weeks, wow.
Yeah. And crucially, no signs of the body rejecting the therapy, no anti-drug antibodies, and no serious adverse events reported in that cohort.
And the antibodies worked.
They showed the expressed DMs bound the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, confirming functional activity.
The potential for this DM platform seems broader though, right? Not just COVID.
Oh, absolutely. They highlighted the potential advantages, maybe faster, cheaper manufacturing, stable storage without extreme cold, potentially easier redosing.
And even beyond monoclonals.
Yeah, they hinted at protein replacement therapies as another possibility. So it's a platform technology with potentially wide applications.
Very interesting. We should watch for more data there. They mentioned presenting at ASGCT.
Yes, and a manuscript is already available in preprint form for those who want the deep scientific details.
Okay, good to know. Circling back quickly to financials, any other nuggets? Cash burn estimate.
Yeah, they estimated the operational net cash burn for Q2, the current quarter, will be around $22 million, consistent with that runway into early 2026.
Got it. All right, let's shift to the Q&A with analysts. Often some good insights there. What came up?
A few things. On the COSM presentation data, it'll focus on surgery counts, but they'll give more context. And that data is also submitted to the Laryngoscope Journal.
Okay. And you mentioned the RRP patient numbers earlier.
Right. An analyst asked about that. Inovio is doing their own epidemiology work and think the common 14,000 U.S. figure might actually be low.
Why?
Because there isn't a specific diagnostic code, so cases might be missed in standard databases. Interesting angle.
Yeah, that could change the market size calculation. What about the commercial team size? MSLs.
No specific numbers given, but they acknowledge the relatively small number of specialists treating ROP will factor into how they structure that team. It's a focused market.
And the FDA label. What kind of claim are they hoping for regarding reducing surgeries?
The FDA definitely sees reducing surgeries as the key clinical benefit.
Yeah.
The exact label language, like surgery sparing, is still, TBD.
Okay. What about outside the US, Europe, UK?
Regulator discussions there suggest placebo-controlled data will be needed, so that confirmatory trial is important for ex-US potentially too.
Makes sense. Any hints on the first target for the DMAb tech beyond the COVID proof of concept?
Not specifically. They just emphasize its versatility again, monoclonals, protein replacement, keeping options open, it seems.
And back to 3107 priority review, any pushback given other RRP treatments might be in development.
Their argument is basically that 3107 has a unique mechanism of action targeting the underlying HPV, which could really benefit patients, justifying the faster review.
And the data package for the BLA is now complete.
Yes, they confirmed that. Phase 3 data, the immunology work, and that important year 2, year 3 durability data are all included, ready to go.
No, this was interesting pricing. Did they give any indication?
They did. Based on market research with payers, they floated a price point analogous to another rare disease drug, Ogicifio from SpringWorks.
Oh, sure.
Around $360,000 per year for the initial 4-dose regimen of INO-3107.
Wow. Okay. That's significant. And payers seemed okay with that range.
Apparently, the feedback was that it was considered appropriate given the potential benefit and unmet need. No guidance on pricing for redosing or longer term, though.
Still, that's a key piece of the commercial puzzle. U.S. launch plans, partnerships.
Plans to go it alone in the U.S. initially. Focused prescriber base makes that feasible, but they're open to partners for outside the U.S.
Sensible approach. Any other tidbits? Tariffs. Patient demographics.
Monitoring tariffs, but focused on the U.S. launch for now. And yes, confirmed the trial population reflected typical RRP HPV types, mostly HPV 6 and 11, and the confirmatory trial aims for the same.
Okay, a pretty comprehensive update from them.
Yeah, lots of moving parts, but clearly driving towards that INO-3107 BLA submission.
All right, let's pivot to our favorite speculative segment. This is not financial advice. Any wild ideas based on this call?
Okay, here's a thought, purely for entertainment, remember. Given that really strong durability data out to 3 years for 3107,
yeah,
the upcoming BLA submission, potential priority review, and that surprisingly positive payer feedback on a pretty high price point.
Okay, I see where this might be going.
What if you considered not just going long INOV, but maybe pairing it with short positions in companies offering the current, more invasive standard of care options for RRP?
Ooh, a pair trade. The thesis being 3107 disrupts the market if approved.
Exactly. If it truly reduces or eliminates surgeries long-term, it could take significant share. It's super speculative, high risk, obviously. Biotech approvals are binary events.
Absolutely, huge risk. But a provocative thought based on the potential they're presenting? Definitely not advice. Do your own research.
Definitely. Purely informational fun.
So that wraps up our deep dive on Inovio's Q1 2025 earnings call.
We hit the financials, the critical path for INO-3107 and its BLA, the potential of the DMAb platform, and some key insights from the analyst Q&A.
Yeah, a lot hinges on that BLA submission and the subsequent FDA review over the next year or so. And remember, any trade ideas are just that, ideas for discussion, not recommendations.
Always do your homework.
What stood out to you from Inovio's update? Let us know your thoughts. Thanks for joining us on Talk Tickers.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.